Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate day number 1132, 1132, May the 15th, 2020, Friday. Thank you so much for tuning in. Alrighty, based on the unmaskings that were revealed a couple of days ago, now looking at the dates on those unmaskings, and keep in mind the time period for these unmaskings was recent history. It's not going back to 2015, 2014, or anything like that. These are fairly recent unmaskings, the last 4 months, say 3 to 4 months prior to Trump being inaugurated on January 20th, 2017. But just looking at the dates on these unmaskings of Michael Flynn, take a wild guess what the date was of the first unmasking of Michael Flynn based on the recent releases. Want to take a guess? The date of the first Michael Flynn unmasking based on the recent release. How about November the 8th, 2016? November 8th, 2016 at about 11 o'clock p.m. What happened on November 8th, 2016 at about 11 o'clock p.m.? Well, that's the date and the time that Trump won the election. Election night of 2016. That was the date of the first Michael Flynn unmasking based on these recent releases. We now know that most, 3/4 of those unmaskings that were done prior to Flynn's call with the Russian ambassador, Kislyak. Which means most of these unmaskings could have had nothing to do with the Flynn-Kislyak phone call. When we look at the list of unmaskers, we can see that the majority, the overwhelming majority of them, came from people at the Department of Treasury and political appointees, ambassadors. Samantha Power unmasked Michael Flynn 7 times. She was the U.S. ambassador to the UN. What is the U.S. ambassador to the UN doing unmasking the incoming national security advisor? How about all these other ambassadors to places we've never even heard of unmasking Michael Flynn? Unmaskings are typically done by people either in law enforcement, federal law enforcement, or in the intelligence community who are working on a national security issue. Yet here we have a bunch of political appointees in the Obama administration doing unmaskings. These people are not investigators, law enforcement people, or even intelligence people. They're political appointees. Now, when you do an unmasking, you have to fill out a form. And on that form, you must state your reason for wanting to do the unmasking. The next thing that Rick Grinnell should release should be the forms that all these people filled out, showing the reason why they needed to unmask Michael Flynn. And then, of course, today, all over the media, all over the left-wing media, including an interview by the unwitting idiot James Clapper, now they've got a new narrative. Unmaskings are no big deal. We do them all the time. They're fairly routine. Everybody does unmaskings. What's the big deal? It's not illegal. No big deal. Remember, and again, Clapper, no big deal on the unmaskings. And then he says, I can't remember if I unmasked Michael Flynn or not. Well, guess what? You did. We just had the document released yesterday. Of course you did. Well, I can't really remember if I did an unmasking on Michael Flynn. Well, you did. And then he says, no, I don't really remember why. Can't remember why. If I did it, I can't remember why. But I can tell you, if I did, I had a good reason for it. Trust me. He literally said that. If I did it, I had a good reason for it. Can't remember now what the reason was. But if I did it, and you did, I did it for a good reason. Trust me. Everybody trusts you, Jim. Because we all know you don't lie. Man, oh man. This guy, all he does is lie. There's never been a lick of truth ever come out of this guy's mouth. I mean, it's almost surreal. Now, as we know from Devin Nunes and now Trey Gowdy, who just was on TV again yesterday, and he's on with, I think it was Martha McCallum or one of these Fox News people, and he says, well, it's not just Michael Flynn. No, he says, actually, we saw unmaskings of the entire Trump family. Unmask the entire Trump family on Inauguration Day. Literally, just minutes before, as Trump is literally being sworn in as President of the United States, the Obama administration is unmasking his entire family, according to Trey Gowdy. And of course, we had Devin Nunes tell us over 3 years ago now, that when he went over to that skiff, he saw Trump's entire damn team being unmasked. And I assure you, it just didn't stop with Trump and his team, probably many other people who you consider on the right. People you would consider adversaries of the Obama administration. So it wasn't just Flynn. And it's pretty obvious that this was reverse targeting. Flynn was the target of the unmaskings, and these unmaskings that we're talking about that are related to Flynn. And I'm certain that members of the Trump team were the targets of the unmasking. So now we have Trey Gowdy and Nunes, who have both seen the names and the actual unmasked conversations. And they had nothing to do with anything national security related, according to Nunes. Nothing. It was all political. All political. Nothing to do with law enforcement or national security. So Rick Grinnell. Now, obviously, if Nunes has seen the names in these conversations, and Trey Gowdy has seen this going back 3 years, certainly Durham has got the whole list and has seen the same conversations of all these people on the Trump transition team, including his family, who were unmasked in the last 2 to 3 months from the time he won the election to the time he was inaugurated, sworn in. In that time period, Trump's entire transition team. And prior to that, his entire campaign team. Clearly, they were being targeted through reverse targeting, which falls under the FISA Act. So the next thing Rick Grinnell needs to release is the forms behind all those individuals who did the unmaskings, so that we can see the reason why they requested these unmaskings. And he needs to go ahead and release the names, although, again, I think there's maybe a legal issue because these are private citizens, and there's Privacy Act issues, from what I understand, is the reason why he may not be able to release the names of the actual names of these Trump campaign and transition team members. But they could probably do a release showing maybe not their names, but to tell us who they were. members of the Trump campaign team, members of the Trump transition team, members of Trump's family, people like that. Maybe they could do that. It was a lot more than just Michael Flynn. And Durham knows it, Nunes knows it, Gowdy knows it, they've all seen it. John Ratcliffe has also seen that same information. Unbelievable. You just sit back and watch it, and it's almost like it's surreal. It's hard to believe that you're actually witnessing this. They SWAT raid Roger Stone for a process crime. They SWAT raided Manafort. Yet all these deep state criminals are walking around scot-free, at least for now. Now, I don't believe that's going to be the case very much longer. I do believe that Durham is building one hell of a conspiracy case. I don't think he brought in all these high-powered U.S. attorneys, prosecutors, and investigators to write a report. It's amazing to watch the media spin. Oh, unmasking's no big deal. Now, can you imagine if Trump got caught, his administration got caught unmasking, surveilling and unmasking Biden's campaign team, his transition team? How about the Rotten Reverend? How about if Trump would have put together a dossier and then fed it to the FBI to get an investigation into the Rotten Reverend? Do you think there'd be a problem with that? Of course. That's the point. So we'll keep watching. I'm sure there'll be more documents released. We really need to see, though, the next thing we need to see from Grinnell is the reason why these unmaskings were requested. Because you've got these fools out there on TV yesterday making it sound like they had a good reason for it. It was totally justified. Number one, it's not a crime. Number two, we do it all the time. And number three, we had a good reason to do it. That's what the spin is. And Grinnell can put that to rest very easily by releasing those forms which show the reason they requested the unmaskings, especially for Sean McDonough, Obama's chief of staff, and Burisma Joe. Now we have Senator Barrasso on Fox News making a very good point. He says, which I made yesterday, which is that Biden unmasked Flynn the same day as the Washington Post article appeared. A derogatory article about Michael Flynn's phone call with Kislyak, raising questions whether or not he might be up to something. And Senator Barrasso makes the point, I know Joe Biden. He talks a lot. Wouldn't surprise me if he's the leaker. And keep in mind, that is a felony that carries a 10-year prison sentence. If we find out that Joe Biden released, or he wouldn't do it personally, but he would have someone on his staff release it to the Washington Post. If we find out that it was Joe Biden that either directed it or approved or was aware that unmasking he did on Flynn on January the 12th went to the Washington Post and he directed that or even knew about it, that it came out of his unmasking, out of his office through his staff, he will absolutely be charged with a federal crime immediately. Unbelievable. Well, Judge Sullivan, what to make about Judge Sullivan? Listening to all these legal experts giving their opinions, they make it sound like that this is completely, that what he's doing is completely, wrong, for lack of a better word. That you really can't do this. That once the Department of Justice says we're not going to prosecute the case, it's over. And the federal judge it's simply the process. But we can see that Judge Sullivan, who again is a part of the resistance, is now going to play some politics. And it's clear to me who the target here is. I mean, Flynn's obviously the target to a great degree. But, I mean, I think the person that they're really targeting here is Barr. They want to force Barr's hand, almost like what they wanted to do to Trump in the Mueller investigation, to force him to do something that they can say, see, it's obstruction. Trump couldn't do anything during the Mueller investigation. He couldn't fire anybody. He couldn't do anything. His hands were tied. Because if he did anything, they'd say, there it is. There's the obstruction. Impeach. I think they're trying to do the same thing to Barr. They're trying to force him to pull rank on Judge Sullivan so that they can point to him and say, see, obstruction, and get rid of Barr. Impeach him. He's definitely got a big target on him. He knows it. But my guess is Attorney General Barr is pretty smart. He knows exactly the territory he's in. He knows the battlefield. He knows the game. He knows it all. He's not a stupid man. And I think I'm certain he'll get the best of Judge Sullivan on this. But I don't know what recourse he has at this point, but I'm sure if he has any, he's going to take it. And he has to be spitting mad. I mean, Barr has to be spitting mad. And really, it's the head federal judge in that district court should be calling Judge Sullivan in and telling him to back off and to drop this thing it's purely political. That's what it looks like. And then we hear yesterday that he's going to, in fact, he directed the law firm that Flynn had to get rid of, Covington and Burling. He's directing them to come in and make an argument, friends of the court argument, for why Flynn should be prosecuted. Flynn's former defense lawyers have now been invited into the courtroom to explain why Flynn should be prosecuted. You can't make this shit up. Now, we had Andy Biggs doing an interview, and he says that he and a few colleagues, Republicans on his committee, are going to consider articles of impeachment against Judge Sullivan. Well, that's wonderful. The only problem is that the committee is headed by a Democrat, the subcommittee. And Pelosi is the Speaker of the House. And you would need Democrat votes. So it's not going to make it out of subcommittee. It will never get the Democratic votes. And Pelosi will never allow it to be voted on. It's going nowhere. It's a nothing burger. It's a nice gesture. It sounds good. It makes me feel warm and fuzzy. But it's going nowhere. It's really a waste of time. A little bit of grandstanding. And I like Andy Biggs. I don't think he's doing it to grandstand. I think he legitimately believes that Judge Sullivan should be impeached. And he should be. But it's going nowhere. You remember when the Republicans had the House? How many subpoenas did they do? They had the power for 2 years. While the whole Mueller witch hunt was going on, while the coup was going down, they had subpoena power that could have brought this thing to a screeching halt, and they didn't do it. Now you can blame Paul Ryan, some people blame Gowdy, you can blame whoever you like. The bottom line is, the Republicans controlled the House when the shit was hitting the fan. And now that they don't have the power, oh, they're all about it. The FBI showed up at the door of Richard Burr yesterday with a warrant to take his phone in their investigation of his insider trading. He also has agreed to step down temporarily as head of the Senate Intelligence Committee. And that's good news. Maybe, I don't know if there's any other Republicans on the Senate Intelligence Committee that are worth a damn, but maybe one of them will become head of that committee. We'll see. It's up to McConnell. We'll see who he appoints to take Barr's place, to head that committee. Now, Burr's place. Now, the reason that there's increased interest in Burr, because we all know he did that big insider trading deal right at the beginning of the coronavirus thing, is we now find out that in addition to him making a very large move in his stock portfolio, we now know that his brother, may also made a large stock portfolio move on the same day. That's why the FBI's got his phone. That's why he's forced to step down. Burr's likely going to be charged with a crime. I mean, if it was just him, he could probably wiggle off the hook. But now that we know that it wasn't just him, his brother. He told his brother, sell all your stock, dude. Sell all your stock. Not just Burr, his brother. Same day. That ain't good. Doesn't look good for Burr. Well, we had Trump tweeting out, telling Lindsey Graham, who just went on Fox and again promised that he's going to begin having Spygate hearings here at the first week of June. About 2-3 weeks from now, he's going to start having hearings. He's talking about other people. He's going to call in and all these people. Well, Trump tweets out, hey, great. Make sure you call in Obama. Make sure you call into Obama to testify under oath, Lindsey. Take some action for a change. So then Lindsey Graham was asked about it, and he totally backs down. No, I don't think calling Obama would be a good idea. Really, I think it'd be a fantastic idea. He's a private citizen now. I call Obama and Biden. That'd be my first two witnesses. You may not have to call anybody after that. Could get it wrapped up right there. And he said, well, I don't want to interfere with Durham's investigation. You wouldn't interfere with Durham's investigation. In fact, the best thing you could do for Durham is bring these guys in for public hearings and put them under oath and ask them some questions. You might even contact Durham and say, hey, what questions do you want me to ask? Durham would love to have these guys under oath answering some questions before he sits down with them and asks them some questions. So they'll let them lie to Congress. Then he can take their answers and he can dig in and see if they're telling the truth. The best thing you could do for Durham would be to call these people in public hearings and ask them some very pointed questions and force them to either tell the truth and incriminate themselves or lie. That would be a big help to Durham. Wouldn't interfere with his investigation at all. Lindsey Graham. He's a slippery, slippery man. Not fooling me, he's not fooling you, and he's not fooling the president. And let's not forget, there's a lot of liars. You keep reading these transcripts, and when you read these transcripts, you just know that these people are lying. I've already been through the first two I've read through. Now I'm getting ready to start on the next one. Sally Yates transcript I'll be working on over the next day or so. We've already learned quite a bit from hers, but I want to read it myself. And I'll eventually get to Ben Rhodes. But let's not forget that when Ben Rhodes was interviewed after the election, in fact, well after the election, and he was asked by a reporter about what involvement the Obama administration had regarding the Michael Flynn investigation, Ben Rhodes said that the White House never even knew about the Flynn investigation. Never even knew about the Flynn investigation. Well, that's obviously a lie. Because if they didn't know about the Flynn investigation, then why did Susan Rice write the cover your ass letter? He's either caught in a lie or the Obama administration kept him out of the loop. One of the two. We have Devin Nunes on Lou Dobbs telling Lou Dobbs that right now his committee is right in the middle of and requesting documents and getting information on and investigating specifically specifically the Mueller team and what they did and didn't do, what they knew and didn't know or didn't reveal, that they should have revealed, that they definitely knew, like all this stuff with Michael Flynn. for example, and much more. And he says, very likely, almost certain, he will be making criminal referrals to Attorney General Barr for members of the Mueller team. And, of course, we just heard a couple of weeks ago that that's where Durham is now at. He got all the way from the origins, all the way up to the beginning of the Mueller investigation. And that's when Barr said, no, don't stop there. Keep going. Keep going. And so that's when Durham began to dig into the Mueller investigation, the Mueller team. That was about 3 or 4 weeks ago. So yes, obviously Durham is looking at that as well. We also had James Clapper when he was on that interview talking about how routine it is to do unmasking. Now, do you remember when he was asked in testimony about unmasking and he acted like, well, unmasking, yeah, I've done unmasking before. Yeah, I've done it before. Sometimes we need to do an unmasking. Now, he's on TV going, unmasking? Oh, yeah, we do it all the time. It's very routine. I've done hundreds and hundreds of unmaskings. Thousands. We all do. It's just what we do. It's very routine. We do them every day, all day. Thousands and thousands of them. Happens all the time. No big deal. Not a crime. And if I did it, I had a good reason to do it. Trust me. But when asked if he's going to go and testify, if he's called by Lindsey Graham or some other committee, he says, I'm not going to go testify until they got a vaccine for coronavirus. He's not going to put himself in harm's way to testify as long as coronavirus is out there. Not going to testify because of coronavirus. Well, yesterday, the Wall Street Journal editorial board, not exactly a Trump-friendly group of folks, but the Wall Street Journal editorial board wrote a pretty scathing article, pretty much turning on the Obama administration, taking issue with the fact that the narrative that it's no big deal to do these unmaskings is not exactly correct. And they point out that no, it is a big deal. It is done, and it's not necessarily, it is not a crime specifically doing it. There's the way to do it. But there are rules for doing it. You must explain why you need to do it. And it generally happens when you have law enforcement, federal law enforcement, or you have intelligence people who really need to know the name of the American citizen that's involved in the call. It was never intended, however, as the Wall Street Journal points out, to be used as a tool for a political party, a president, his administration, to spy on his political rivals. Then it is a problem. That is not routine. And that is not following the rules. And there's quite a few crimes that could probably fall under that. For the person who was targeted, you're certainly abusing your power by doing that. You're violating their civil rights. You're violating the privacy laws for the citizen. Because remember, this is an innocent citizen. I mean, if you had a reason to spy on the citizen, you wouldn't need to unmask a call. You would go to a judge and you get a warrant to surveil this individual. You present your evidence to the judge. You say, yeah, that looks good to me. Go ahead, here's your surveillance warrant. Here's your wiretap authority. So, kind of interesting to see the Wall Street Journal editorial board, which is fairly liberal, to come out and write this scathing editorial on the Obama administration and Obama administration officials, along with members of the left-wing hack media who are out there trying to now sell this narrative that it's no big deal. Maskings are no big deal. It's routine. It's not a crime. It's all good. And the Wall Street Journal, at least ways the editorial board there, is having none of it. And they wrote a fairly good article. And they make some very, very good points. And they make the logical argument, which we all know, is, look, yeah, obviously it's not illegal to do unmaskings. There's a provision for that. But it wasn't meant to be used to target your political enemies. It's meant for law enforcement or national security people. not meant for ambassadors, not meant for people at the Treasury, not meant for the people at the President's Chief of Staff, not meant for the Vice President to just unmask someone because they're curious. Curiosity is not the right predicate to request an unmasking. That's why I say we need to see these forms that they filled out and see what the reason is that they requested the unmasking. Because one of two things: either they gave a really weak reason that should have caused them to have the request turned down, or they lied. We know it wasn't legit. So, again, I mean, it's wonderful to see all these documents coming out and all this information coming out, but at the same time, it's like living in a parallel universe when you watch the, and I don't typically sit down and watch this stuff, but I kind of have to do it to do my videos. I at least have to watch these 30-second and 2 to 2 minute long clips of these people on left-wing media to do my videos. So I kind of have to watch it. I'm exposed to it. Otherwise, I'd never know it's even going on because I don't watch it other than that. But when you see the way that they flip these narratives and create these narratives, it's mind-boggling. And, they have millions of people who are watching and are buying every bit of it, swallowing it, hook, line, and sinker. And you already know what the narrative is. Just Barr and Durham and Trump, they all know what the narrative is going to be because it's already out there. When they indict these people, they are literally going to say, they're going to start this narrative. It's already started. They're going to push this narrative the entire time once the indictments start coming down. And the narrative is going to be, this is a travesty of justice. This is the Trump administration using the powerful tools of intelligence and law enforcement to target their political enemies. That's going to be the narrative. The tyrannical President Trump, along with his henchmen Barr and Durham, using the powerful tools of law enforcement and intelligence to target their political enemies. It's a travesty. It's tyranny. It's exactly what they're going to do. Just watch and see. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll be back tomorrow with more TowerGate. See you. Bye.